Hey everybody, my name's Nick, and today I'm talking about The Wheel of Time, The Gathering Storm. This is the first book co-written by Brandon Sanderson, and I had a lot of difficulties with this book. Unfortunately, Brandon Sanderson got so much wrong in terms of the tone of characters in this book. I feel like he knew his writing style wouldn't match completely, and he tried to fix this by writing from the point of view of a lot of secondary characters like Avienda, for instance, Swan, some of the Forsaken in this one. There was a lot of secondary characters that were being written and set up, and I feel like this was intentional to try to help him mask his tone differences, his writing style differences, but I gotta say it did not work much, if at all. The overall story and plot that happened was really fun, and it was really great. In this book, we got to see Rand descending into his deepest and darkest moments so far, and then in the same book, it was nice to actually have this completed somewhat, right? He goes up on at the end to the top of Dragon Mount and he does all this stuff, and I think that was a really nice decision to just finish everything in one book, pretty much. Even though we don't specifically know the outcome of what happened, there's enough hints, I think, that we can gather what did happen. Now, along with that, we also got Egwin's storyline completed, which was really nice. All these Black Aja sisters are getting executed. They got found out. They got kicked out of the tower. You know, there was a lot of really cool things that happened. But it was all secondary to the fact that Brandon Sanderson wrote his scenes completely different, and it was so distracting. Things that had the wrong tone, for instance, you know, even for lesser characters like Ruark. I felt that in the few very minimal scenes where Ruark was shown speaking to Rand, I just felt like he talked too much. Honestly, you know, we never really in the past heard Ruark put together so many sentences, and in this one he was just, you know, talking and saying things, pushing back at Rand so much. And maybe this was intentional in that the clan chiefs and even Ruark are getting fed up with Rand, but the way it was done just did not feel natural to me. It did not feel like something Robert Jordan would write, and I know that I can't expect a 100% Brandon Sanderson being able to write exactly like Robert Jordan, but I just felt that this didn't work. Same with Perrin. We got a small amount of Perrin in this book, which I am fine with, but in this book, the first scene with Perrin is him on the ground working on wagon wheels. Robert Jordan would never let this fly. He spent the last 5 books telling us how Perrin isn't allowed to do anything. If he tries to look over a horse, the grooms rush over and stop him. If he tries to get his own bowl of food, everyone comes over and rushes and won't let him do it. So for him to write the fact that Perrin in the very first scene is on the ground working on wagon wheels, I just don't believe that. That's totally wrong. You know, maybe he thought it wasn't like a big deal, but to me it really is, because it's just totally different than what the Perrin was before. Now, the biggest and most egregious character change in this book is Matt. Matrim Cawthon is completely different, and he has changed for the worse. And weirdly, it's not just Matt, it's Matt's entire party. Matt, Talmanis, Tom, and even the Aes Sedai that are with him. Everybody is way over the top silly. It's very odd to me. If Brandon Sanderson got it wrong and just misunderstood how one character was written, and like, oh, Matt's actually just a silly guy, even though he's never been a silly guy. He's always been selfish, but he's always had a good heart, and it lands him into trouble, and then through that trouble he is kind of comical. He's never been this joke-cracking comedic guy, and every single sentence out of Matt's mouth is a joke, and it's just terrible. I really hated it. Not only that, Brandon Sanderson decided that instead of just introducing a new character to the band, like a new officer that would hang around a lot more, that is a comedic and funny guy that can, banter with the new Matt that he wrote. Instead of doing that, he's going to change Talmanis from this somber, very serious guy, and he's just going to pretend that, oh, hey, he's actually not somber. The entire time you were reading him, he was actually just very deadpan and has a very dry sense of humor that nobody understands. And then finally, Matt is catching on to it and he's getting it. Why? Why are you changing him? Why do that? Leave him and then introduce a new officer character that can fulfill that role. Instead, he makes Talmanis it actually turns out Talmanis is really just a wise guy cracking jokes just as much as Matt, but you just never noticed before. Tom also cracking way too many jokes. It's even the Aes Sedai here are cracking jokes at Matt. That entire party was changed, and it's really weird, and it makes no sense, the decision to do this. Add a character for comedic relief if you want. That's totally fine. But dude, you gotta keep the core characters, especially one of the trio, right? Matt and Perrin, totally different. You gotta keep them the same. It's frustrating. And I understand that Brandon Sanderson had a very difficult job in doing what he did. And he saved the franchise by finishing the books for Robert Jordan. But unfortunately, maybe Brandon Sanderson had to spend so much time looking through Robert Jordan's notes, figuring out how to connect everything together, figuring out what needs to go in what book, and, just the order of everything and how to write this, that he didn't spend enough time actually going back to the old books 1 through 10, and studying how the characters act, how they're written, how they sound. Maybe he just was going off of his memories instead, because he was a fan prior to this. And so maybe he just didn't spend enough time studying those old books. And I tell you, he really needed to. I mean, this was his first attempt, right? I understand that, but it was way off. He missed the mark by a mile. I really hope that in this next book he eases up on Matt's ridiculous amount of humor. I really hope that he goes back and actually studies these old books and looks at them seriously to see how the tone is for these lesser characters like Avienda, like Ruark, like Rodel Ituralda. I understand he's the new author. He can take liberties for these type of things. But I just felt that he did a very poor job in this book. And it's unfortunate because there was a lot of really fun stuff that happened that I really enjoyed reading. Once I got to like the last quarter of the book, I thought there was a lot of really fun stuff. But it was just overshadowed by how awful his writing was for these established characters that I've grown to love, especially Matt. Anyone who's watched my previous reviews know I love Matt. I loved Matt, and he was my favorite character. He was a lot of fun, even though he was a selfish prick, and it was ruined. It's really unfortunate. Now, again, this book set up a ton of really fun new things that are going to be happening. Perrin wanting to learn the wolf dream. Egwin is finally the Amarlin seat of the whole White Tower. Rand has finally had to come to this crossroads where he realizes he is totally wrong and he wants to end the world because he is totally fed up with anything and it's too much on his weight. He nearly burned his father out of the pattern, and he has come to some sort of clarity on his time on Dragonmount. The sun, the final scene in the epilogue, the sun shining down on the peak of Dragonmount, and I look forward to seeing what happens. But man, I really, really hope Brandon Sanderson did his due diligence and has looked into previous books to try to match what we love. Good luck to Brandon Sanderson on the next one. I'm going to start that right now. So everyone, thanks for watching. Hey, Nick here. If you enjoyed this video, please gently caress that like button for us.
And Ray, thanks for watching. It was a blast. Make sure to hit that subscribe if you want to stay up to date with what we're doing what me and him are doing there. Me and him, Nick and Ray, subscribe.